Rebecca Hoffberger interview from AVAM. When you're in this idea of who's an artist and what's an artist, which is what I think when it comes to like outsider artists and so on, she doesn't look like you and I, but my point is still there where this notion of outside artists kind of extending what the idea of what artistry is, what creativity is, and so on. So having that was a lot of inspiration there. And in the conversation, I didn't know what I was doing. This was still like early in the pod. And I'm like, how did I get her again? How did I get this person of this caliber? You have like, I founded this place. And the kicker was, I'd never been to AVAM at that time. And she called me on it. She's like, "You've never been to AVAM, have you?" I was like, "How did you know?" And she was like, "Being a little bit of a loser. You know what? You should come. Be my guest." So I eventually came after, but sort of the interview was just one of those moments that I think was a career trajectory thing, but also was like speaking with her, someone's been in that industry and had that place for close to 30 years as far as being a place that is representative of Baltimore, representative of
Yeah.
sort of different slices of art here, not just the fine art, which is kind of rarefied, but or not even the sort of like only the DIY folks, but it's almost this hodgepodge that I think is really interesting. I think really reflective of Baltimore. So really having that conversation. Then on the other side of that is the weirdness of it, the way that that interview went down. She researched me before we did the interview and she had a lot of questions for me. So
Okay.
ultimately, the interview wasn't the sort of standard interview that I do, or even what I was comfortable at the time. It was kind of just a conversation that we eventually chopped up. We were talking about Patrice O'Neill for a while and stand-up comedy. She was like, "Yeah, I found your old website, and I had a funeral, and a friend passed, but then I found out about the things you're into." She's like, "Shinsuke Nakamura, hell yeah, wrestling." And I was just like, "Wow." And she was like, "Patrice O'Neill." She's like, "Yeah, I was just listening to his stand-up, and it kind of got me through the blues of this." I was not expecting that. I was not expecting, especially at that time, for someone to research me and then basically almost counter interview me. And I had to throw the questions out. That was one of those first instances where I'm just going off the cuff and just improving the entire interview. Another one in terms of the inspiring would be LaFontaine Oliver, who's currently president of WNYC in New York. And one of the things that connects, and I think you'll perk up for this one, he's a Morgan guy. He's running WEAA. So having that, and it was one of those points of we were talking, we did the interview. I didn't know him initially. And he was referred to me and we ended up chatting it up. And I was like, again, how did I get this dude? And then finding out his background is what it was. And I was like, oh, you're like a big person. You're like a real person. I'm just over here knocking crumbs out of my beard and you're a real person. And just some of the things that he was saying, just my approach and how I go about stuff, it was very like, wow. He's like, you're good at this. He's like, do you have any interest in broadcast? And giving me that sort of feedback. Those are those sort of pivotal in different ways, but it kind of did the same thing and inspiring and hearing their stories, but also getting that sort of acknowledgement. And the other one I'll say, the last one in terms of the honorable mentions, as far as one of the weirder ones, it would be there's a few that come to mind, but one that sticks out is I did an interview with Adam Stab, the graffiti artist.
Okay.
He was great because it was just stream of consciousness. And it was again one of those sort of,
Yeah.
all right, where can I get a question in? And I just never got any questions in. It's just like, yeah, these are my thoughts, brother. And it's like a 90-minute interview. And I was like, I don't think I asked one
Jeez.
question.
Jeez. He
Yeah.
was rolling, man.
He was ready, he was queued up. And it was fun, it was great, but it was definitely one of those ones that's a little, different.